publicly, it's just for my, well, just for me. Is that okay? All right. So, line 3. Actually, before I start, I just want to give you the lesson aims. Okay, 2 big aims for today. 1, understand foreigners better by being open about negatives. Okay? 悪いところも考慮に入れることで、外国人をよりよく理解しましょう。That's number 1. Aim number 2 is understand ourselves better. Okay? When we compare, we have an opportunity to understand ourselves better. Okay? 何か比較することができたら、初めて自分たちのことをよく理解できると思います。Okay? Line 3. Many people who have never lived in Japan may come to the conclusion, based on Japanese stereotypes, that Japan is a very strict, conservative country that would be hard for foreigners to live in. On the other side of the spectrum, many other people who may have only heard a few things about Japan might come to the conclusion that it is a bona fide paradise for foreigners. We that live here in Japan know that it is actually a little bit of both. There are things that are beneficial for foreigners, and there are things that seem to just catch us out of our element. Great. All you need is English. I use this phrase rather loosely because I believe that to truly experience Japan, you should also speak the Japanese language to communicate with Japanese people and understand the culture better. So, Azai-san, first question goes to you. Do you agree with this statement? No. Do you agree with, I believe that to truly experience Japan, you should also speak the Japanese language to communicate with Japanese people and understand the culture better? You think so?
Yes.
How comes? Why?
How come?
Yes.
Because, well, it's private, but my brother has a girlfriend who is from Canada.
Okay.
And she can speak Japanese very fluently. So she can communicate with my grandma and also mother. And, you know, they cannot speak English fluently. So if she wants to be like a part of us, I think the quickest way and also the best way would be learning Japanese.
To understand the culture better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very nice story. Does anyone have any other examples of how understanding the language can help us to understand the culture? Okay, Hans.
I believe your statement because there are some phrases that doesn't exist in Japanese when you use in English, or the other way around. Such as like "otsukare-sama" in English is very difficult to translate, and so there are many words, phrases that you have to understand the cultures. But by just learning language, you can't understand the phrases and words, and yeah, I think.
Yeah, when people use it and how, in what way do they use it? What is the kind of motion?
Situations.
Yeah. Okay. Any other examples? There is no right answer, by the way. Mariko-san. Okay. Understanding comedy. I have to say though, I do sometimes switch on the TV and people are laughing in the background, but I don't really understand why they're laughing. Maybe that's just me. I don't have the sense of humor. Tomomi-san, how about you? Do you have any examples of how language can help?
It's not an example, and I think she said it's the same with the things she said before, but Japanese is a really high context language. So
Yes.
there are many things that, even if you sing the same thing in Japanese, there are like there can be different meanings.
Yes.
And if you don't really understand Japanese, you may understand it in the wrong way, which can cause trouble. So I think that is true.
Okay. Personally, I mean, as I speak both languages, I can, I'm in a privileged position where I can kind of compare and contrast. But one of the things that is very difficult to kind of grasp or to even explain to foreigners is, how people kind of use chan, kun, san, sama, right? Because this is a really unique part of Japanese culture, I think. Because it, by saying, oh, Mariko-san, I'm showing some kind of politeness, right? But then I could say, Ami-chan or something. I'm showing some kind of closeness, right? But it's in English, it doesn't really cover it enough, right? You can't really say, oh, it's just, it's very difficult to explain. But you have to kind of be part of the culture and to kind of understand the culture to know what it means to call someone nei-nei-kun, nei-nei-san, nei-nei-chan. So I think this is one of the areas where, language and culture is, it kind of merges, and it's important to learn both the language and the culture, and not just through the textbook, but through practice and immersing yourself and exposing yourself to the culture. Then you can kind of absorb what it means, how people relate to each other, what's the connection between these two people. It's a very interesting question, I think. Okay, let's carry on. Line 14. However, many foreigners have lived comfortably in Japan for several years, due largely in part to the fact that they are native or near native speakers of English, and can use that to their advantage by teaching English. If you are a native speaker of English or are bilingual, with fluent English being one of those languages, your chances of being able to live and work in Japan as an English teacher are greatly improved. Granted that you have a basic college education. Many foreigners have lived in Japan for several years using only English doing this job. So, let's ask a question to Hitoshi-san. Is it a good thing for foreigners that they can get by and live in Japan without having to learn Japanese?
I think the foreigners living in Japan, learning English is much better for them. Learning Japanese.
Yes.
Because perhaps they realize the differences of their countries and our country, and their culture and our culture. It's interesting, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's very interesting. But let's look at this question in more detail. Is it a good thing for foreigners that they can get by without having to learn Japanese? So, Hitoshi-san, you're saying yes or no? No?
No.
No, because why? Because they are missing out?
I think. Sorry, I can say.
What you were saying is kind of mottai-nai, right? That's what you meant. I mean, they're missing out on some good parts of Japan and Japanese culture because they are not learning Japanese.
I think you said so. You said. I agree. Now you said.
Okay? They're missing out. Mottai-nai. Real neighbor. Any other reasons for no? Michiko-san.
This is a difficult question for me. When I went to English school, most of English teachers can speak Japanese, but they are really fun to live in Japan.
Oh, they said they enjoyed themselves. Okay. So,
Some of foreigners is good to speak Japanese, only speak Japanese, but some of foreigners can do.
you mean, for some foreigners, it's okay, it's good enough for them that they don't have to learn Japanese. Okay. Because it's fun anyway.
Yeah.
Japan is fun anyway. Okay? Anybody else? Yamazaki-san, what do you think?
I think not many Japanese can speak English fluently. And if foreigners can speak Japanese, they miss opportunity to make friends Japanese people.
So they're missing out,
Yeah.
on opportunities. I'm going to add it to this one. On opportunities for friendship. Business as well, yeah? Business as well. Okay. Any other kind of factors for no? Jiko-san?
It's a little bit difficult to say good or bad, but someone said it's fun or not.
Fun or not fun?
If you speak Japanese, you can make friends and yeah.
Yeah.
It will be fun, but if you speak only English, it's still fun. But for me, there is no meaning to live in Japan.
Very well put, I think. Very good. All right. So you lose the meaning of being in Japan. 日本に来た意味がない。Is that what you mean?
Yeah, but some people just come here for business or, they have a reason, so I don't wanna,
Okay. Not everyone, but in some cases.
yeah.
Right. So let's talk about English teachers, right? English teachers, if they don't learn Japanese, then they're always going to be an English teacher, basically, right? unless they develop some very technical skills or some kind of special expertise, then they're always going to be trapped in a hole called eikaiwa that they cannot climb out of. Trapped in eikaiwa. So, Mikiko-san, you said you went to an English school, right?
Yeah.
And the majority of teachers there did not speak any Japanese, right? Do you think they will be saying, oh, I'm having fun in 10 years' time if they live here?
I don't know, but their parents is only who can speak English.
Yes. So it's kind of like being trapped. You cannot escape that circle. Right? But a lot of people that I speak to, the English teachers who have been here for over 10 years, and they don't speak Japanese, it doesn't look like they are really fulfilling life because they're kind of trapped. They don't have many options, right? Because if they come here and they stay here for 10 years doing an English teaching job, if they go back home, what career do they have, right? So it is a trap, right? I would also add that foreigners will, if they don't learn Japanese, they're always going to have a handicap. Always have a handicap, right? Going to City Hall, yakusho, filling out all the forms, and you have to ask your wife, you have to ask for favors of people, right? It's like you're kind of like you have a handicap. So I think it's very difficult for these people to kind of get out of this system if they don't learn Japanese, right? So at the moment, it's very easy for people to come to Japan, foreigners to come to Japan, especially in Tokyo, and live here without having to learn Japanese. And I always think if life is too easy, and you never challenge yourself, then I don't think you're going to be truly happy in the long run, because life is too easy. And at the moment, I think life is very, very easy. Does anybody have anything else to add to this? No? Let's move on. Line 21. As a matter of fact, many of my Japanese friends who do not speak English have told me that they are very envious of those who can speak English fluently and can go so many places in the world because of that. One of them told me this eye-opening tidbit in a way I never thought about before. Many foreigners from English-speaking countries can come to Japan and many other places in the world just because they speak English. We can't just go to an English-speaking country because we can speak Japanese. Do you agree with this? Shogo-san. Do you agree with this? Many foreigners from English-speaking countries can come to Japan and many other places in the world just because they can speak English. But we cannot go to English-speaking countries because we don't speak Japanese. 我々日本語しか喋れないから海外に行っても通用しないけれども英語喋れれば日本に。Do you agree with this?
Next. I need with interpreter.
I just gave it to you in Japanese. 日本語でもいいですよ。どう思います？なんだっけ。英語を喋れる外国人は日本に来ても他の国に来ても、英語喋れるからなんとかなっていける、そういう国に行ける。でも我々日本人は日本語しか喋れないから別に国に行けないって書いてあるんですよ。We can't just go.
それについて。
Yes.
I traveled 65 or 65 countries
Oh wow.
around the world, but so I cannot speak English.
Oh, so you don't.
So but so maybe so communication skill
Mhm.
is I have weapons gesture
Oh, you use body language.
and smile.
Yes. Surprise.
Yeah, so it is big language
Yeah.
as a big language.
Yeah. So.
Japanese people are very shy, as even if they speak English. It's important. Most important is nori.
Nori. Yes.
Written. Written
Yes.
is important. And culture, original culture, Japanese culture.
Very good.
So I learned karate. So I do player of karate, kata. So I can eat food in restaurant for free.
Well, because you know karate.
So negotiation owner, restaurant owner.
I like you.
If you are,
I like you.
so for free.
Is it?
I need a man in the world.
Yes. So, you obviously disagree with this.
Huh?
You obviously disagree with what is written here.
You know, so
What's your?
yeah, first time I speak English the first time
Yes.
today.
当然これについては意味があるんですよね。
Yes, yes.
Of course. Yeah. So, I agree with you that this is quite nonsense. I think for many people they say, "Ah, でも日本語しか喋れないからcan't go overseas." But Shogo-san is right. You don't need to speak English or whatever to go to another country. I mean, I went to China and other places, Laos, Vietnam, and I didn't speak any of their languages, but you get by. It's not right? But yeah, I think you're right. There's a lot of people are shy about going to other countries, and they will find excuses. So I just wanted to get your opinion. Thank you, Shogo-san.
I have a question.
Yes, Izumi-san.
Last sentence is we can't just go to an English-speaking country because I don't understand just going or living. That's the point for me. Just going is easy even you don't speak English.
Yes.
But if you decided to live there, you have to speak you need to speak their language. But English speaker can't get the job as an English teacher because the English teacher is very
In demand.
on demand,
In demand.
in demand
Yes.
all over the world. So the point is just going or living.
So there's a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, living in a different country, of course, you cannot just live in a country. You need to have a job and you need the right visa and things like that. So obviously, yeah, it's. I think there's a difference. You're right about going and living. I think here they're talking about going.
Just going.
It looks like it. It's not the best article. It's from Gaijin. So yes.
Because in Japanese we just say like iku means like go and also like maybe including the move into that country. So that's why I wonder which is correct in this sense.
Yeah. I really think it's about going.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of people will tell me, I don't speak English. You know how many people told me that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You never heard that?
Because so many people who cannot speak English will travel.
I know. Including Shogo-san. So. Yeah, I know he did. But a lot of people have told me that. Maybe they just wanted to do business.
Yeah, I think so. Like many people who don't speak English go abroad, but they prefer to have a tour guide to translate, interpret. Otherwise, they cannot go. Like my mother.
Yeah, so I think that's the kind of person.
Yeah, that's why I agree with the sentence actually.
You agree? They cannot go there.
Cannot go.
Cannot and will not is different.
Right.
行けない、行きたくない。It's the difference.
I think many people think like that.
行けない?
You cannot.
But that's nonsense. You can go.
If you're brave enough.
Well, yeah, I mean, bravery, there's different degrees of bravery. Going to another country is not the most brave thing I've done, but you know, it's different standards for different people. Okay, let's move on. Line 27, not so great. Being truly accepted by society is difficult. So you can come to Japan and teach English without speaking the language, but you may quickly realize that truly being accepted by society beyond simple pleasantries is a lot more difficult than it may sound. I simply can't express the disdain I have felt in my heart when hearing someone say to me, "Ma, Gaijin dakara shouga nai yo ne." Well, you're a foreigner, so it can't be helped. When I didn't understand the situation that was going on around me, or worse, I did understand and they just assumed I didn't because I'm a foreigner. It is expected by some Japanese people that we won't understand what is going on with some cultural subtlety, or won't understand what's being said because we aren't expected to understand Japanese. I'm going to just pause it here because I just noticed this very interesting thing this writer is doing. Have you ever heard of hedging your words? Hedging. Tomomi-san.
Hedging the words.
Yeah, hedging your language. What's hedging?
Hedging.
I'm sure you do a lot of
in
that.
common time, I think hedging is trying to lessen the risk.
Yes, exactly. Reduce the risk, reduce your exposure. So here, the writer says it is expected by some Japanese people. But, you know, having that some and not having it is a big difference, right? It is expected by Japanese people. It's a dangen. A lot of Japanese people I've found, they do make dangen. They don't hedge their words, right? So they say we Japanese are this, that, and the other, and they say that it's true. But there's a big difference between saying we. A lot of Japanese people are like this, or some Japanese people are like this. But it's a question of care. So I think in terms of English language learning today, I would recommend you to hedge your language if you are making any statements publicly. Always. I always recommend that. Okay? Sorry to pause. Where was I? Yes, line 37. It has been said in the past in many culture classes about Japan that in order to be truly accepted, one must have the blood, Japanese blood, the Japanese language, and be from Japan. Most of us are physically incapable of satisfying all three of these, and some Japanese people assess these factors subconsciously. Do you agree with this statement, Ryohei-san? That
So what we read the
statement?
yes,
37 to 39. It has been said in the past in many cultural classes about Japan that in order to be truly accepted, one must have the blood, the language, and be from Japan. 日本人の血を持ってて日本語を喋る。 で日本出身じゃないと、本当に受け入れられない。There seems to be there seems that there have been some culture classes about that. Do you agree with this? What do you think?
Personally, I don't agree with you. So it matter that go where they are. So, but I think so. I met Australian woman. So she's half Australian and maybe Japanese. And so her looks seems like Asian. So she told me it's so hard to find a job as an English teacher in Asian countries because she looks Asian. So I think appearance is important to living countries, yeah, like Japan or other Asian countries. So it's my opinion.
So you think that people are not accepted?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a difficult question, I know. How about you, Baksan? What do you think?
I think, yeah, that's true. People, yeah, people, I don't know how they say. If we have a bank assessment, yeah, maybe, well, the foreigners are really difficult, so that, because they are different.
No, yeah, that's...
I think that's true. It's not acceptable.
Well, I don't think banks, they look at your blood. I don't think they look at your...
Nationality or something?
Okay. Yes. Does anybody have any kind of comment on this? Because it's quite a strong comment. It's quite a strong statement to say that you can't be truly accepted in Japan if you don't have the blood, the language, and also be from Japan.
I think
Yes.
recently, for example, like a sumo restaurant, in not, it's not easy to find what is it? Yokozuna in Japanese. Recently, many foreigners became Yokozuna. So I think I know even my friends really love Japan and learn about Japan, and sometimes they know more than I. So I think, of course, some kind of depend on the occupation or depend on things. It's not easy for them to completely understand everything. But I don't quite agree with that. Just that some parts they can learn more than Japanese or even equal.
Yeah. It's a great example that you raised with sumo, because that is a sport where recently, as you say, a lot of Mongolians have been champions recently. And there's been lots of cultural miscommunications there, wasn't there? Asashori was the guy when he played football when he was injured, he wasn't supposed to. But personally, I think Japan pretty much accepts people, right? Doesn't matter where you're from. But in terms of, I think you're kind of accepted as a kind of a foreigner, right? But you're not completely integrated into the Japanese hierarchy. It's almost impossible because you don't really know if you don't really totally know the language and the hierarchical system. People often talk about kuki. I think there is a kuki which exists that many foreigners they don't really understand so well. But I think Japan does accept, but I think you're put into a box, like you're put into a Gaijin box, right, where people assume certain things about you. I'm trying to think of an example, but yeah, I mean, when I speak Japanese, a lot of people are very surprised. You speak great Japanese, right? That's unexpected. But because I don't look completely Japanese and I don't act completely Japanese, I'm put into a box, a non-Japanese box. But that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But one thing to understand is that in Europe or in America, there are no boxes like that. Right? Especially in Europe, we try to integrate into society as much as possible. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Muslim, Eastern European. The aim is to try to integrate and to try to treat people equally. But this is not Europe. But people coming from Europe and America will have their own expectations of what acceptance looks like. So I think there is a kind of gap there between the culture. And it's not Japan's fault, it's not the foreigners' fault, it's just a lack of information, I think, and different expectations. Do you agree with that? Or?
Yeah. In my opinion, Japan is an isolated country, and then we have almost similar looking, like as you said. It's easy to define, I'm Japanese, you are not, like you're coming from other country, other culture. So that's why Japanese people judge Japanese and others so easily, like white and black or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's why this kind of thing.
Yeah. So it's just a different country. It's just a different way of doing things. So it's not a bad thing. I don't think it's just different.
Yeah, we just can't mix. We're always Japanese, same hair color, same language, same education background, everything. So it's easy to speak we are Japanese and others.
And I think, to be honest, I used to fear the Gaijin when I was a child. Now I don't.
I'm just copying.
So now I don't mind and I can accept the Gaijin, but this is the point that subconsciously we are Japanese and to be honest, I also used to be fear Gaijin because they speak English well and I can't, and they are bigger than us. So perhaps now I still have some kind of fear in subconsciously. But I have.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think you're not alone. I think there's lots of people like that, and there's reasons for it. But it's something in your head. It's not. It's something that belongs in not just your head, but other people's head, and then it changes the way that people treat each other, I think. So it's a good point you say the subconscious element is very important. Excuse me. Line 42. This is fortunately becoming less of a thing in Japan in more recent years, but it is still very much alive in certain places. Great. oftentimes you aren't held to the same standards as Japanese people. This may be a good point for some and a bad point for others, but to me this is a plus. Japanese people have to constantly be considering their place in society according to the Japanese hierarchy, particularly at the workplace. Japanese people are expected to be able to read a situation at all times and make the right decision. Talk to people with the correct level of politeness, and society in general has high expectations of them as people. So I want to discuss this point. Is it okay I rub this out? Yes? So the next question is going to be about expectations, right? Is it good or bad for foreigners themselves Japanese society? Good or bad for foreigners or Japanese society that there are different expectations? So what this essentially is basically well, 日本人は日本人に厳しい right? But for Gaijins, it can be a little bit more relaxed. Is this a good thing or bad thing for foreigners themselves or for Japanese society? So this is a multi-layered question. Okay. Good. Foreigners themselves. Okay. So let me try to rephrase this question in Japanese. 外人にとって別の基準より緩い基準というより緩い基準があることはいいのか良くないのか。First question. Sekine-san, what do you think? Is it good for foreigners that they have relaxed rules? If so, what are the good points? Or is it bad for foreigners? And if so, what are the bad points?
I think it's good because perhaps the foreigners came to his country, his or her country, and he may talk your family or your friends about about Japan, and at the time it is good influence for Japan to tell them Japan is good country.
Oh, so from a reputational standpoint for Japan, it's good. So I think probably your answer is more fitting for Japanese society. Don't you? Because A is 外国人にとって and B is 日本社会にとって So your answer is it's good for it's good for Japan society, I think. Right? Excuse me. Good reputation. So what that means is, hey mom, I went to Japan. I had a great time. They treated me very well. They treated me like a king, right? So it's good for the reputation. Oh, that's very nice, Julie. Well done. Yeah. Okay. Kaori-san, how about you? Good or bad for foreigners that they are treated differently?
I have talked with a guy from America, and he said Japanese likes Americans, so he seemed to be comfortable living here, but I think it's different, that he's really accepted or not. So what expectations?
So you're saying that your American friend is treated very well here, and he feels comfortable. So it's good for the foreigner, yes? No?
So,
生活しやすい。
yes, but I'm not sure if he's truly accepted because he's treated as a foreigner.
So maybe not truly accepted. So your answer has two sides to it. Not truly accepted. Okay.
Because Japanese have a very strong kind of barrier
Yeah.
to the outsiders.
Yeah. So the problem, if you are outside of if you are not accepted as a foreigner, then I think that could kind of leave that person out of important discussions, important decisions. Do you agree? No. Yeah. If there's a foreigner and you're nice to him, but he's not really part of the decision-making process, where the important discussions, the meetings, and so on.
Yeah, there's a possibility like that.
So it could be left out of important discussions. And this is especially true in business, I think. Any other good points or bad points for foreigners? That they have different rules, different expectations? Asai-san.
Yes, I think it's good for somewhat like good for like Japanese society, because many Japanese people read the situation too much. But sometimes when foreigners speak up.
Oh, okay. So it's different expectations for foreigners is good for society because they offer a different view.
Yeah.
They offer. Okay. Otherwise, it's very difficult to express yourself.
Or like a break the ice, to break the rule.
Oh, okay. Because everybody's kind of trying to
Like follow one direction.
and then it's good to have a Gaijin. Okay. All Kawakami-san, how about you?
Yeah, I think there is a good point and bad point.
Yes.
I agree with good bad point could be led out of an important discussion. I agree with
This point.
this point, and I think good point is to accept many foreigners to Japan. If we have no choice to treat foreigners Gaijin in some situation, because it is difficult to explain read a situation in English or in Japanese. For me, read a situation is difficult sometimes, so I can't explain for foreigners what is you should read situation. So,
What's the mood of the people?
yeah. So yes, good point. But we have no. Sometimes I feel we have no choice. It is difficult to tell. Good.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's
First, it is good, but we should accept and teach for foreigners what we are thinking or what we are thinking, not close. But first, I feel we have sometimes we have no choice.
So you say it's bad for Japanese society because we cannot include people who may have a good.
Yes.
It's difficult to include. I would say difficult to include maybe talented people who are not in the culture. Difficult to include talented people not accustomed to the culture. Okay. And that would be a cost for Japanese society. Okay. I think, in terms of answering these questions, is it good or bad? I think there's a few things I could say here. It's good for a foreigner that they have different expectations because you have more space to surprise people. I know this because I'm also a Gaijin. I'm surprised. Okay, so will it surprise you that I know very much about sushi? I used to do sushi shopping for 3 years. Surprising, isn't it? Yes. So when I go to sushi and I know more about sushi than Japanese people I'm with, oh wow, you're amazing. So that's a good thing for foreigners, of course, because the expectation is quite low, but then when you know something about Japanese culture and society, then you can surprise. It's a good thing for foreigners. And the bad thing for foreigners, that they get different expectations from society, is that I think they also get a twisted view of Japan. What I mean is, if everybody is treating you differently in society, then your view of society is very different. 屈曲した日本に対する意見視点 You get a yeah. It's not the real Japan that they experience. It's a Japan as seen through the eyes of the Gaijin. Right. And in terms of Japanese society, Bad thing. This is a very bad thing. There's one really bad thing for Japanese society, that they have different rules for foreigners, is that occasionally you will get the Gaijin smasher. Have you ever heard of that? Gaijin smash? You don't know it? Nobody? And you know, Amita? Okay, it's basically, Gaijin smash is Gaijins who know that the rules are relaxed for them, right? So, for example, you know, if you pick up the phone and you want to make a business call to a company, you don't know anything about their company, but you will speak in English. Hello, hi, I'd like to speak to so-and-so, CEO, blah, blah, blah. Speak in English, right? And then that's kind of a Gaijin smash, because the person receiving the call is like, oh, I don't know what to do. Right? There's people do that. Another Gaijin smash is JR, right? Sometimes I've heard incidents of Gaijins, they don't pay the entire ticket fare, right? But they go through the barrier, and the Ekin will not say anything, right? It's a Gaijin smash. But if it was a Japanese, then well, that's but if it's a Gaijin, they're like, I don't know what to do. Just, well, yeah. And Gaijins, they know this. If they stay enough, if they stay here long enough, they understand that there are different rules, right? There was a very nasty incident a couple of years ago with a Nampashi called Julien Blanc. Do you remember that, Kari-san? Yes. What did he do? It's a different Julien, by the way. Yeah, so he was basically going around sexually harassing women at the konbini, on the street, because he knew that they were not going to call the police and they were not going to call Chikan. So he was filming this, put it on YouTube and so forth, and actually, he was right. Nobody called the police, right? But if a middle-aged Japanese man does it, there'll be plenty of police officers coming down, right? So, Gaijin smash is when Gaijins, they know that there are different rules, and then they exploit it. So you also Gaijin smash. Okay, so watch out for that. Line 51. As foreigners, we are, for the most part, not expected to live up to the same standards as Japanese people, because we were not brought up in the culture itself. To a certain extent, of course, we can get away with not following established yet unspoken social protocols. If a Japanese person didn't follow such protocols, they would be judged much more harshly. Considering this, many foreigners have been very happy to live in Japan for many years as pariahs of society, being able to observe but never fully expected to participate. This is, again, very dependent on your outlook on whether or not this is a good thing. Not so great. Without proficient Japanese, our job options are extremely limited. We know this, of course. If you don't speak Japanese, you're going to be stuck in eikaiwa for the rest of your life. Now, a few things that I want to go through before we close the class. Before, there was a statement that read, Gaijin dakara shouganai. Have you ever heard this before? Or have you ever said this before? You have?
Yes.
What's wrong, what's the problem with this statement, or this line of thinking? Why does it annoy people? Why does it piss people off? Why do Gaijins get annoyed when you take this kind of stance? まあ、外人だからしょうがない。What's the problem with this?
Like for me,
Well, maybe no problem for you.
for me,
Yes.
it's easier and things like that. For example, when I have a meeting with, let's say, Mexican people, and they don't appear on the time, and then like, if I'm annoyed or angry with that, なんかバカみたいだから it's easy to understand, oh, they're not Japanese, Mexican people. Let's go to the meeting place after 2 hours.
I see. I'm going to add that here, the good for Japanese society, because it's easy to
Yeah.
have different expectations. Easier to categorize people. Okay. But what's the problem with that line of thinking? Mikiko-san. Yes, what's the problem with that?
I think if I hear the sentence, I feel I am not being I am not being believed by other people.
Shinyo-san?
Yes.
Yeah. I think the word is alienation. Alienation is, なんだろう。別の人っていう、ちょっと違う人間というふうに言われる。Right? It alienates the person if you say this to them. And it's actually, if you are with foreigners and then if the foreigner does something and then you say, oh, Gaijin, it's actually it's quite rude. It's in the West, in England at least, for me, we never really say there's a foreigner here. We never say that. The word foreigner is kind of it's not a nice word because it excludes that person from your circle. So I know in Japan, Gaijin is part of the language. But to call somebody a foreigner when they are there in that room with you is actually quite rude. Right? So that's one problem, I think, and a lot of foreigners don't want to be called a foreigner, at least when they're there. Right? Another thing? Okay. Yes.
I am a teacher, so I have foreign students now, for instance, Chinese boys and Korean girls, and there it's good, but sometimes they are different from Japanese students, and I need to understand, it is necessary to understand them, but I must tell this is not good, and so please, this is the class is a kind of society, so I want them to be out of society.
You don't want them to be out of society?
I don't want them be that stay pariahs.
Pariahs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Society.
Yeah.
So
Gaijin no ga shogunai is not a good answer for you. Not a good comment. Right? You want to include them and you want to teach them, right, what's the right way, instead of saying shogunai and dismissing it.
In my case,
Yes.
I have trust.
Yeah, and I think that's admirable. Yes, easily something.
It's kind of giving up to teach them how to behave in the Japanese society. Like, in a public class, maybe foreigner doesn't know how to wash your body first to get in the bathtub. So if people see foreigners didn't do that, and then you go into the bathtub, maybe, oh, there's an occasional, but actually, it's kind of like underestimate foreigners to learn, they have the capability to learn Japanese rules or manners.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think we should tell them, give a chance to learn Japanese society manners.
Great answer. Yeah. So yeah, it's almost like you're giving up on that person. But there is another option. It's okay, no, it's okay, Jill-san. You don't have to tell me like that. But I'm just telling you, how it looks from a Gaijin standpoint. Gaijin students. So yes, I looked into some of the complaints that.
We just wanted to emphasize that we have to respect their culture as well. For example, even like our society is very much precise one, but if, like for example, Muslim people have to pray on that time in the meeting, then we should let them go. I think such a thing.
Yeah.
Because if this is Japan, you cannot go now. It is not good idea to live together.
Coexist. Coexist.
Yep.
共存する.
So.
Yes. You're right, I think. Okay, so I was on the internet and I was looking at some of the posts by Gaijins in Japan. And of course they talk about Japan and the things that they do in Japan and the things that they complain about Japan. And one of them was about practicing English. Some Gaijins, they speak Japanese and they want to speak Japanese, but sometimes they come across Japanese people who want to practice and use them as a kind of sparring partner for their English. Yeah, why? Why do people do this? That's one of the big complaints. Any opinions of that?
I think so. We view foreigners as English teachers.
Yes. I like that.
Yeah, many foreigners complain about that. So, Japanese people, yeah. So we see foreigners as an English teacher or just rap or something. So it's for showing off. So to hit it up with foreigners, it seems like cool. Yeah, unfortunately, so yeah.
But the foreigner is just being used as a kind of practice.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, that was one of the complaints I read. Another was actually, I don't really agree with this. It's partly to do with compliments, homekotoba, right? So I've heard, oh, your face is so small, or oh, I want to be like you, or something like that, along those lines. Is it really necessary to make these compliments? What do you think? Japanese standpoint. 日本人視点から、日本人視点から、what do you think? Making compliments about appearance.
Personally, I don't like that, so I don't do that. I don't want to pick up some personal uniqueness, because like I'm tall, so I don't want to talk about my height.
But I'm sure
Japanese people talk about and asking all the time, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and do you know what the great miscommunication is there? Because there's a big gokai that comes from that, and a lot of the Gaijins that were writing in the forums were saying Japan is such a superficial country. Yeah, superficial? You understand? I mean, I disagree with this, but what do you think? Is Japan a superficial country? Yamazaki-san.
We Japanese use I don't know お世辞ってなんていうのお世辞
Infatuating yourself, ingratiating yourself. Yes. Kissing up. Oseji.
We often use oseji to
Yeah. But is that, do you think Japan is a Hyomen-teki?
yes.
I disagree with that. And because I think Japan is a country where personality is so important. People always talk about ningen-se, seikaku. You watch TV, how many of those people are really truly beautiful? I don't think that there are many, but it's the people who are most popular, like Sanma-chan or Tsurube. I think they kind of sell their own personalities, and I think ningen-se is very, very valuable here. But a lot of foreigners, they don't see that, right? So I really think that there is a need to kind of be open about the negatives, about the negative thoughts that Gaijins have about Japan, and to understand what they are, so that we can communicate better between Japanese and non-Japanese, and be open and critical about ourselves. And I think the most important thing to take away from this class is to keep an open mind and kind of be curious about the other person's culture, because without that, it's just going to be miscommunication. So that's my final message to you today. I hope you enjoyed today's class. Thank you very much for coming. ありがとうございました。Thank you very much. Now, I need to borrow 5 minutes of your time. Is that okay? Because Ono-san and Nagano-san were very, very kind to let me use this beautiful room where we can see the Tokyo Tower from. And I want to express my gratitude and say thank you by giving you a very, very short presentation. Is that okay? Just 5 minutes of your time? So, all right. So, of course, DMM is an Eikaiwa company, right? English teacher company. So okay, firstly, I am not employed by DMM, don't worry. I'm not a Sakura, but I do think this is a very, very good product. And I will show you why, and I will show you how to use DMM Eikaiwa. Okay, so here are some of the good points about DMM Eikaiwa. It's fun. Right? You can speak to people from around the world, right? So, and it's also very cheap as well, I think. And here are the benefits. You improve your speaking, you improve your communication skills, culture skills, of course. And I think you can also get better grammar if you care about that. Now, let me show you a graphic. So a lot of the Eikaiwa companies, they offer English speaking. That's the Philippines there in the red. This is DMM Eikaiwa. So I can speak to anyone. I can speak to people from any of these countries, right? In red. So it's more than Philippines. I can even speak to Russians. The other time, a couple of days ago, I was speaking to a Ukrainian girl. Very nice. I actually studied quite a lot about the civil war in the Ukraine, and we had a very nice conversation in English, of course, about Russia and what they did there. So it's for me, it's very valuable to be able to speak to other people from all over the world, because you can get so much knowledge about what's really happening, what's the mood in that country. The yellow is the kind of plus native plans. If you want to speak to people from America, Canada, Australia, you can do that. I think it costs a little bit more. Anyway, back to the presentation. How to use DMM Kaiwa. So, first step, choose a teacher, right? Who do you want to speak to? Hanako-san, who do you want to chat to?
I want to talk to Una.
Una-chan. Yes. Yeah, I met her a couple of years ago. She came to Tokyo when the DMM was in Ebisu. What's wrong with Dinko?
No, because Una has the
Stars?
yeah, 5 stars.
High rating.
And
Oh, okay.
also the comments.
Oh, okay. But he seems like an interesting guy. I like how you can see his hair. I didn't notice that before. I need to chat to that guy. Second, get in the mood, right? When you speak to somebody, you want to kind of enjoy yourself and have a good time. So make sure you're in the mood. It's not a really tough English lesson. You just kind of enjoy yourself. Third point, be aggressive. Okay, this is your English lesson. You can decide what you want to talk about, right? So, for example, if you want to learn about grammar, you can use one of the textbooks that DMM provides for free, and you can do bunpo. Personally, I think that's boring, but that's okay. If you have some TOEIC needs, they have some exercises that you can do with TOEIC with a teacher, which is good. And if you just want to chat, which is what I always do, you can just have a chat with somebody from another country. That's very nice. And if you want to talk about work, which is what I really recommend, if you have a very specific job and you want to kind of talk about, kind of be able to explain something in English about your job, right? So if it's about securities, right, you want to, for example, listen, it says here I'm a web designer, but if you say I'm a trader or a dealer, ask me anything about my job. What do I do? If you cannot answer in English, then you know that's something that you need to improve on. So that's a very important part of trying to use DMMA Kaiwa for business purposes. It's good. And if you have homework that you want checked, they can check it for you. That's good. If you just want to know what's happening in the other person's country, how's the weather today? Is it hot in the Philippines? I'm sure it is. Fourth step, get feedback, right? This is very important. If you don't have feedback from the teacher, you don't know what went wrong, okay? So make sure that you get feedback. What's your weak points, right? Tell me, please tell me my weak points. Otherwise, I will never improve. Seems rational enough. Now, as I said, I'm not a sakura, okay? So I'm going to highlight some drawbacks. Okay, 注意点. Number one, no curriculum. This is not a school, this is a business, right? So sometimes you can use the eikaiwa, sometimes you won't use the eikaiwa. There's no duty. So that changes things. You have to make sure that you keep doing it all the time, okay? And then you will improve a lot. Second point, you have to ask teachers for the weak points, right? Have you ever heard of hometaoshi? Oh, you're such a great English speaker. Oh, you're good. That doesn't help anybody, right? You just feel good and it's finished. So you have to ask teachers, what is my weak point? Right? Otherwise the teacher's not going to tell you. This is a business, right? Customer satisfaction is important, right? So you have to ask the teachers for the weak points. Beware of rote memorization. Tomomi-san, what is rote memorization?
Sorry, I don't know.
It's maranki. Yes, rote memorization. If anybody tells you to memorize things, it's not good, I don't think. You have to engage your brain all the time, right? Fourth point, it's not perfect. Teachers can and do make mistakes, and this is true. right? If you have an English teacher from Serbia or Philippines, you know, it's not going to be 100%, right? But if it's 99% or 98%, it's good enough, believe it or not. Yeah, so just be careful of that. And finally, this is not a school, it is a business, it is up to you to make the most of it. Now what that means is this is like a gym, right? If you have a gym membership, do you have a gym membership, gentlemen? No? Anyone here have a gym?
I have.
Oh, you have a gym membership? How often do you go?
1 month, 2 months ago,
Yes.
and in Fujisawa City.
How often do you go?
Sorry, 2 per week.
Twice a week. But
Twice.
you can go more, right?
No, recently I am busy.
Oh, there you go. You're paying money for the gym, but
Yes,
you're not going all the time. So in terms of business model, you can use it every day, or you can use it twice a week, right?
Right.
So if you want to make the most of it, which is moto torunya, use it every day, right? So that's the key to getting the most out of DMMA product. But just be careful of these things, then you will have a great product. Lastly, enjoy. You're speaking to another human being, right? You'll never meet that person, but you are sharing the same time for 25 minutes. That's a very special feeling. You know, I have spoken to 3 or 4 teachers on DMMA Gaijin, and I have, you know, one thing I got was happiness, right? When you have a nice conversation with someone for 25 minutes and you feel happy, that's great, you know? So just be nice to the other person, right? We are living in Japan. We are in a very privileged society. I think we make more money than most of the people in the world, but we are speaking to people who live in parts of the world where they don't make so much money. But you know, we share that same time and space together, and we talk to each other as one human being to another, and I think that's a very beautiful thing, and you can get a lot of happiness out of it. So thank you so much for sitting through my presentation. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed the lesson, please leave a donation. If you didn't, it's fine. Nothing is fine as well. どうもありがとうございました. Next lesson is, I think, on the last Tuesday of this month, but that's going to be in Takadano-baba, and the topic is going to be about lobbyists. Lobbyists. You know? Very big. ありがとうございます。Did you enjoy?
Yeah, well,
Oh, wasabi, yeah. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed It's not my office. Card 捨てないでくださいね。出るには普通なんで。どうもありがとうございました。Oh, the Tuesday of the end. Maybe you can help with that. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. ありがとうございました。Thank you so much. ありがとうございました。Thank you very much. Good to see you again.
Yeah, long time, man.
Yes. Okay. Oh, マイクさん、ありがとうございました。Thank you very much. ありがとうございます。Thank you so much. ありがとうございます。Thank you very much.
2回目です。
ヘッジはまあリスクを抑えるために、まあ、自分をリスクにさらさない。だから日本人はみんなこうなんだって断言するには、多くの日本人はこういうですっていう。この違い、断言と、そうです。どうもありがとうございます。
名刺一方的に渡したから関係ないですね。
OK。
最初の翔吾さんと名付いたのかと思って最初に教えてたから
確かにその後に一緒に飯行く。どうなんだろう。その後に中華料理行って。
ああ、そうなんですね。ジャンルの時わかるんですか。
いや、ごめんなさい、ちょっとやり方ですけど。そうなんですよ。で、だから光を当てないといけなくて、だから夜は電話つけて当ててるんですよ。
I'll see you on Sunday.
いつもすごい暗くて、プロジェクトリングバーって言って動物は小部屋まで案内してくれるんですけど、私明るいから分かんなくて迷っちゃいます。
そうだね。
そう、どこがどこか分かんなくてさ。
どうもありがとうございます。お久しぶりです、本当に。Thank you so much.
いえ、いろいろお忙しくて。
どうもありがとうございます。すみません。一応自分の資料を印刷したんですけど、私もよろしいですか。ありがとうございます。教材
Okay, I have one and I will copy to give my friend.
Okay, we'll send that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. 3部やってるんですけど、いろんな会社でやっているので、でも何かなんかそういうところをご検討なんですか。
そうですね。今入ってるのは内定者。
内定者。若い人たちですね。
で、英語スキルが結構低めの内定者と、まあ、やってるんですけど、警戒を出してくれますし、プラスナンバーで、もうできないかなと思って。
今やっている会社の中で、新入社員に向けて、僕たちが出しているクラスメート、サイバーセキュリティ、業界で最後というのが通信会社です。結構、その若い人たちにそういう研修をやらせる中では、結構日本語もあるとすごい助かるっていうのが実感できるんですが、そういうことも使って、するという感じなんです。こちらが一部ずつ。はい。まあいろいろやっていますので、まだ秋のセミナーもあるので、もしよろしければ時間の取れるお会いできたら幸いです。
結構ジュリアさんって研修とか面白いなって思ってて、同期の外国人の留学生の同期に行ったりするので、それで英語力がちょっと弱い部分ですので、まあ、 低いこと高いことをしてもらって、
やっぱりその受講生一人一人とその信頼関係を築くのが非常に重要だっていうことを今までのそのやってた研修の中で分かったので、その人たちは内定者で若かったりしても、そのちゃんとしたビジネスマンの一員なんだけど、にかかわらずやっぱりその信頼を得ることによってより学習させることができるんじゃないかなと。そうですね、もしもっと詳しくお話をお聞きすることができましたら、また打ち合わせを設定することはできますかね。
上司とも同じく、今年のその内定者のトレーニングのプログラムで考えて、それだけで方法が見えてきたら、ちょっと話をして
かしこまりました。今日はどうもありがとうございました。どうもありがとうございました。Thank you. Have a safe trip home.
ありがとうございました。
はい。よろしくお願いします。田中さん、以上に OK。ありがとうございました。
お疲れ様です。
どうでしたかね。
僕はみずほ銀行の